I met Q, James Cheney, we just refer to him as Q, about 2 years back, and I was introduced to him just briefly during the filming of a project for my wife's organization, Warrior Angels. The name of the project was The Reality of Violence. It was a self-defense series directed at women, and one of the main talents there, the instructor, was a good friend of Q's. And so I had about a 5-minute conversation with him, and then I saw some of the things that he was bringing to this other guy, and I thought, wow, this guy's really talented. So little by little, I got a chance to know him a little better and find out what he did and his background, and I listened to his story, which was incredible. And when you hear it from him, I think you're going to agree that his story was phenomenal. James literally was a creative genius, and we had a lot of commonalities about the way that we did things. And you'll see, as I let James just tell his story and throw in graphics and pictures and B-roll video to illustrate the things he's talking about, you'll see why we needed to build a brand around James, why we needed to create and help him launch an organization and create a structure of stability for his family based on a business that would give him the opportunity to stay at home and create an income that would flow into him utilizing his talents. Now understand, he went through some pretty tough stuff, and the industry that he's in now, he wasn't in before. But because of the way that he was and how creative he was, and because he was so talented, it was easy to hand this off to him and help build an organization around him. So in this episode of Money Motivates You, I want you to see the real life story of James Q. Cheney. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, it's James from Tactical Trailer Park here in the trailer hood. Kind of doing a little background story on how I got to where I'm at, why I'm doing what I'm doing. Just over 10 years ago, young married student, dirt broke. We had our first son, and there were a lot of complications. And our son suffered a lot of brain damage because of it. He ended up with cerebral palsy and some epilepsy. It's not severe, but he's dealing with that too. And it was a challenge going to school, not having much money, trying to help my wife, trying to be there for my son. So we trudged through, did everything we could to help him. I graduated with my degree, got my first job, and it was a great job. Started making good money. After a little while, I got a huge raise, started saving up money for a house, like making progress in life finally. And it got to the point with our son and his development that it became really obvious that the only way to help him reach his max potential in life, I needed to be at home more for him and for my family. I couldn't spend 8 to 10 hours at work every single day. Not that I couldn't work 8 to 10 hours, but I had to be more flexible, help him with his therapies, help him day to day progress and experience and learn, and to teach him and kind of adapt to what he needed. And so just as we had almost enough for a really good house down payment, I was making enough that we could, if I would have stayed working for just a few more months, we would have been able to finally buy a house and do it comfortably, like not have any problems doing it. But it just became obvious that my son needed me. And so I left the engineering career. We took that money that I'd saved up for a house and started living off of that. And I started trying to figure out how to build my own business. I made a lot of progress during that time, built a lot of machines, learned a lot of the things that I'm using now. But unfortunately, the business side, the marketing side, I had a much steeper learning curve than what I thought it was going to be. And so after a time, we'd used up all the money we'd saved to buy the house, still trudging along because still moving forward because that's what my son needed. And it was going well with him. Like, he's making lots and lots of progress. But it came to a point where I wasn't going to be able to keep going forward much longer without some help. And through a series of, you could call them coincidences, I came in touch with a man named Ed Earl through a mutual friend. There really weren't coincidences, but started working with him, started helping him with some of his projects, and he started looking at my situation, what my skills were, where I was going, and started having some ideas on how to help move it forward. And at that time, I was helping design a lot of knives, like self-defense knives, firearm products, stuff like this. And I was on the phone with him one day, and he's like, dude, why don't you just call it Tactical Trailer Park? And at first I'm thinking, why would you call it Tactical Trailer Park? Like, how is that something to brag about? And he kind of walked me through it and explained and helped me see that everything I'd gone through and everything I was sacrificing to do what I was doing with my son was actually an asset. And so we got the web domain, started helping with branding, marketing, started growing it, made my first knives. I had to do all those by hand. I used an angle grinder, and I had to build my belt grinder from scratch to do that. But it became very clear that in order for me to make the knives I wanted to design and to scale it, because my engineering background, I knew I needed to scale this in order to grow it the way it was possible to reach its potential. I realized I had to design more of my equipment, but he helped coach me through it, helped walk me through it, and helped me see what it could be and how to get there. So I'll show you this machine, Frankenstein. It's got scrap parts all over it. It's actually amazing this thing even works. A lot of these parts I just bought off of Amazon, had them shipped to my house. Some of these linear rails, that black connecting plate, that's scrap metal, that's scrap metal. I bought the steel, got a cheap Harbor Freight welder to weld it together, and I had this crazy idea of building a CNC milling machine in my shed in a trailer park. And I knew that's what needed to happen, and so I worked at it and kept moving forward. And you can see there's some of the programming I've done on some of the latest knives. And what ended up happening is once I got this machine going, I realized it actually worked. And it worked really well. Like, there's no way this thing should have been able to do as well as it does. Let me move it around so you can see. Like, it's impressive what I've pulled off with this. And I'm making knives that I've never seen anyone make before this way. And it's not just the CNC machining. There's a lot of people doing CNC machined knives these days. But the styling, the beveling, I don't know. I've never seen it. And this wouldn't have existed without the guidance of Ed Earl. I'll show you some of the other tools. Shop's kind of messy because I'm in the middle of making more knives. Come over here. This is my heat treating oven. I realized very early on that I had to heat treat my own knives because sometimes I'd only have one or two at a time, and it just wasn't economical to send them off. So I figured out how to turn this thing on, like how to build it. I had to do all the math to figure out how to wind those heating elements to get them the right lengths, to get the right temperatures. Control system down there. But I get this thing up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit on a regular basis, and it does great. I got my Harbor Freight drill press. Absolute cheapo machine, and I have built so many machines off of it. It's crazy. Then we got this beast. Like, this is another one that I've had to rebuild this thing 4 or 5 times now, but each time it keeps getting bigger and better and stronger and more rigid and more powerful. But like almost every part is scrap metal. That's scrap metal. Let's see, that's scrap metal, that scrap metal, that is. This bottom frame down here is got a 3 horsepower Harbor Freight motor on there, but that thing goes and it works. And that's the amazing part about this is I'm in a 12 by 16 shed, literally in a trailer park. Well, like, no joke, trailer hood stuff. Kind of show you, this is where I work. And so far, because of Ed Earl and his help and his guidance, I've been in the largest tactical magazine in the country 2 magazines in a row, like 2 editions in a row. Like, I am working with people now that I'd only heard about on the news and the TV, and making contacts, business relationships I never thought was possible. Like, it just hadn't crossed my mind that it could even happen that way. That I could even meet these people, work with them. And it's amazing where it's going and how it's growing. And it's all because I did all the work to get it going. But once I finally found the right person to help guide me, then I started making progress I was never making before. And I couldn't have done it without the guidance of Ed Earl. And this is actually turning into something. Like, it's amazing how he took a dirt broke engineer in a trailer park and turned it into a brand and actually created something out of it that was real. Something that helps my son, helps my family, helps me help others. And just like a little follow-up with our son, he is doing things the doctor said that he would never be able to do when he was born. Like, when he was first born, they pretty much said, be prepared for him to never walk. And if he does walk, he's not going to have much energy. He's not going to have very good balance. He's going to need a wheelchair most of his life. Like, just be prepared that when he goes to college, if he's able to, he's just going to have to go around in a wheelchair everywhere. But we didn't accept that. Like, we knew that it was a potential for that to happen, and we knew it was going to be a long road, and we didn't know exactly how he was going to progress or what he was going to be capable of. But we were going to do everything in our part to make sure he could reach his potential, whatever it was. And this last summer, he climbed a mountain that was 9,600 feet high. He needed some help with the balance on some of the rockier parts, but he climbed it. And when he got to the top, he was racing me to the top. He shouldn't be doing that. He's doing stuff all day long that we were told at the beginning he should never have done. So leaving my career, as challenging as it was to get to where I'm at, was the best thing we could have done. Especially for our son. Just to watch him learn and grow. And it's still a struggle. It's still work every single week. There's always therapies. There's always things we're working on. But because I have the flexibility now, I can be there for him and be there for my wife, and we can help him reach his potential. And it's just one of those things that it was a challenge, but it was worth it. But the other thing is, it wouldn't have taken off without the help and guidance from Ed Earl. I could only get it so far myself, but with him, he was able to show me how to take what I thought were deficiencies, turn them into assets, and make connections and grow this into something I didn't realize it could ever be. So there's just a little bit of the background, and I've already got the plans drawn up to build the big brother to this thing. Not quite the right time, needing to grow the business a little bit more, but it won't be much longer before this will be the secondary machine, and I'll have a machine that for about 1/5 of the price of buying a full-scale CNC machine, I'll have something that can do anything and everything I could ever need it to do. But it took a lot of guidance and a lot of creativity and a lot of time and a lot of work, but it's happening. So anyways, sign out there and just follow along and show you what this turns into.